For our guest today, we have Mr. Jimmy Williams from the Veterans Administration Regional Office here out of New Orleans. And he is the Assistant Service Manager. And he is here today, hopefully, I'm calling this to be part 2, to pick up where he left off, just to make it, to understand where we left off last time. He's going to repeat some of the same information. So, Jimmy, my friend, it's nice to have you on board again.
Yes, sir.
So,
yes, sir.
Go for it.
Yeah, I think when we finished last time, we were talking a little bit about the fully developed claim program, and really, I think where that came from was the discussion about the VA Form 21-526EZ form. Again, the 21-526EZ form, which is the form that veterans can file compensation claims on and submit it on into the Veterans Administration.
Mm-hmm.
But I was talking about the advent of the fully developed claim program, and really how that was an initiative to get away from the way VA used to, the way VA was processing claims. And just to recap, that old process before the fully developed claim program was the VA was required to assist, and we call it duty to assist. Whenever a veteran would file a claim, we'd have to issue them a letter. Mm-hmm. So we would send them correspondence that would quite often confuse veterans, and then they would respond to that, and based on their response, we had to send another response, and it became cyclical, and you saw long claims processing delays. Right. And you shared your experience with that. So with the fully developed claim program, what we did is we provided our duty to assist up front by providing that information on the EZ form.
Okay.
And the expectation with that was that you know what is necessary to substantiate your claim. You file your claim along with all of the evidence necessary for VA to make a decision. Now, the distinction I wanted to make there in terms of all of the evidence necessary to make a decision on the claim is that the claim will stay in the fully developed claim program if it does not require VA to obtain any records or documentation outside of federal records. Okay, so VA if you file that claim on the 526EZ form and you submit your private medical records if you wanted to submit those. VA would go out to Social Security Administration and get those records. They would reach out to the Department of Defense and obtain records. They would reach out to VA Medical Center and get those records, federal facilities. They would schedule VA examinations. And while they're going out and obtaining those records, it would keep it in the program. But by eliminating the cyclical process I described before, where we have to issue correspondence, wait for you to respond, issue correspondence, we were able to really shorten the claims processing time. So veterans who file on the EZ form and submit all the evidence necessary to decide that claim would generally receive a much swifter decision.
Well, it seems as if the new process is less time consuming.
That's right.
So veterans out there, don't give up. Contact us and we'll hopefully make things happen for you. So what else you want to talk about, Jimmy, as far as?
Yeah, I think I'd like to pick up a little bit on what I was talking about before when we were talking about the prescribed forms. Okay. Because I went off on a little tangent there on the 526EZ. But again, you can file those compensation claims on the VA Form 21-526EZ, 21-526A, or 21-526B. We'll accept those claims, but again, the preferred method is on the EZ form. But that all stemmed from us going the route of having a prescribed form to submit claims in the VA, so we knew exactly what veterans were filing. But I also just spoke a little bit about the fully developed claim program, right?
Right.
And how we want you to go get those records and get them in, right?
Yes.
Well, there's this little terminology we use at VBA called an effective date.
An effective date.
An effective date. So an effective date is the date that we start to pay a veteran should we find them service connected and going to receive compensation.
Okay.
So we don't want veterans to, if you wanted to file a claim today, but it took you 2 months to go get your private record so that you could submit it and get all that stuff to us so we can make a quick decision. We don't want to penalize you and say, all right, well, it took you 2 months. Now we're going to start paying you 2 months. We want to start paying you from when you really wanted to file that claim, right? So there's this program, if you will, or this what the prescribed form allows is the intent to file. And the intent to file is filed on a VA Form 0966. And what the intent to file, again, that's a VA Form 0966. And what the intent to file does is it allows a little placeholder for you to go get those records. So if you wanted to file that claim today, you could submit a 21-0966, which is just expressing, I intend to file a claim for benefits. It'll hold that effective date, the date that you would be getting paid from should we find you service connected, and then it gives you up to a year to go get those records and then substantiate your claim by actually filing that 526 or that 526EZ.
Yeah, so no, you're cleaning up your act.
Right,
it all together.
exactly. So, yeah, so for example, if you did an intensive file on February 1st of 2016, and you ended up waiting until November to get all those records, and then on November of 2016, you submitted a 526, and you claimed a slew of disabilities, and we service connected all of them, and at 50% disabling, you wouldn't get paid from November. You'd get back pay all the way from February because you put that intent to file in.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think it's coming up to the last, not the last, but to the second segment. First segment, right? So anyway, we'll be back in a couple minutes. We're back with Jimmy, and hopefully we'll pick up where we left off.
Yep.
My friend, it's on you again.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're making me speak a lot today.
Yeah.
I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to provide information to your viewers and veterans. I wanted to just talk about individual unemployability.
Okay.
So, and along with our whole discussion we had about prescribed forms. So, individual unemployability, it's also called IU. You might hear that among your veteran friends, IU. But basically what individual unemployability is it's a benefit that VBA pays to veterans because of their inability to maintain or secure substantially gainful employment as a result of service-connected disabilities.
Okay.
Now that is the key part there is being unable to maintain employment as a result of service-connected disabilities. So, and I'll talk a little bit more about that here in just a moment, but if a veteran wanted to file a claim for individual unemployability, they would have to file that on a prescribed form, similar to what we talked about in the earlier sessions. And that form is VA Form 21-8940, VA Form 21-8940, and that would also be accompanied with a VA Form 21-4192. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the 8940 and really the important pieces of that form that many times veterans might pass over or not fill out, and why those are important when we're deciding a claim for individual unemployability. So on the form's going to ask some generic questions about where you live and all that information, but it also asks the last time you were employed. Now, that's important because if you're found to be unemployable, we can determine and pay you from the day after you last worked. So that actually might be earlier than the date you filed your claim.
Okay.
So if you're able to provide us exact dates of when you were last employed,
Right.
you actually might be able to get yourself entitlement to more compensation from an
Right.
earlier date. Another important area is the block in the middle left hand. I don't know the exact number. It's a lot of blocks, but it's the one that asks you what specific service-connected disabilities prevent you from maintaining employment. And it's important that you list the ones that you feel or that you feel prevent you from securing employment. And then another important place of the form is on the second page, where it asks you for information about your education and additional training. Now, that's important because when a VBA claims processor, particularly a decision maker, is looking at that form and evaluating and making a legal determination as to whether or not a veteran is entitled to individual unemployability, they may consider whether or not a veteran could obtain a career in another area. Now, for example, we have a veteran who might have a lifetime of construction experience but suffers from severe musculoskeletal disabilities or a mental condition that prevents them from employment, or what have you, and their education is shown to have never gone to college or no type of specific trade that might let that employee go work in an office. So as a result, that veteran might be found to be deemed
Right.
unemployable.
Right, right.
Right. So again, that's why those areas are important. Again, listing the date you last employed. Also, be sure to indicate your level of training and education, and also be sure to list all the service-connected disabilities that would prevent you from securing or maintaining gainful employment. Now, after filling the form out, the way that we would process the claim generally is the disabilities listed that are stated to prevent gainful employment, we would get examinations to determine the level of severity of those conditions, and we would also ask a medical professional as to their opinion as to whether or not those conditions and those conditions alone preclude a veteran from getting employed. And if that determination comes out favorable, along with all the body of evidence, that's how we would be able to determine and render a veteran to be deemed IU, unemployed, individual unemployability. Now, when a veteran is established with individual unemployability, that veteran would then receive compensation at the 100% rate. So it would be as if,
Yes,
right,
okay.
we call that term total.
Total, yeah.
Right, totally disabled. Now, if a veteran were to return to work, IU would be discontinued. And when I say discontinued, I'm just saying that they would no longer receive payment at the 100% rate.
Right, right.
Right. So if a veteran was 70% disabled for, say, a mental condition, and they filed a claim for individual unemployability and they were found to be unemployable, we would obviously begin paying them at the 100% rate.
100% level.
Now, 2 years later, that veteran goes to work, and they report it to us, and that information is obtained. We would then discontinue it, but pay him
At the
back at the 70% or the current level of severity of his condition.
Okay, well, that
So-
covers a lot of territory.
Right, right. IU is a benefit that's often claimed, and we see those claims a lot at
Yeah,
our regional
yeah.
office.
Well, I'll tell you what, I think this is coming to end the segment, so we'll be back. We're back, and let's see where Jimmy can pick up. Nice to see you again, partner.
Nice to see you, man. Nice to see you. It's been
All
a
right.
pleasure.
Let's talk about, you were talking about IU, I think.
Yeah, I
Started
was-
off in that area.
Right, yeah. I just wrapped up IU when we were leaving, but again, I just want to kind of recap on that and then move into to what we call some ancillary benefits, and also stay along those lines that we've been discussing with the prescribed claims form. So again, IU stands for individual unemployability, and just as you all heard, that means VA pays a veteran at the 100% rate because they are unable to secure and maintain gainful employment as a result of service-connected disability. Now that is a key point to make, is the service-connected disability. What we see happens a lot or a reason why IU may be denied for a veteran is because it's a non-service connected disability that prevents employment.
Okay.
So a veteran might be a combination of both service-connected and non-service-connected disabilities that prevent them from being employed. But if it's not solely due to the service-connected disability, entitlement to individual unemployability cannot be established. And we were also drawing a distinction between that if a veteran is granted IU and returns to work, IU would then be discontinued.
Okay.
But all that means is they would no longer be paid at the 100% rate. They would be being paid at what they were originally service connected
Right.
at. But when I think about IU, a lot of times these things or conditions where veterans are paid at the 100% rate or even rated 100% based on their service-connected disability, I wanted to bring up a common ancillary benefit, and it's an education benefit. So veterans that are paid at the 100% rate or service-connected for 100% disabling for a disability, and there's no likelihood of improvement, that's what we call or determine a veteran to be permanent and total.
Right, right.
Meaning no room for improvement. The permanent part, the total, 100%.
In
Now,
other words, you can't work, okay?
right,
That's-
exactly. Yeah, according to the way that we pay compensation, you can't work. Well, when that happens, veterans are entitled to additional benefit. So it's called Chapter 35 DEA Dependents Education Assistance, and that's an educational benefit that veterans are entitled to. And that's what we call an ancillary benefit. And I kind of wanted to segue a little more into some other ancillary benefits that we call, that when I say ancillary benefits, this is more of an inferred issue than an ancillary benefit, but I did want to cover it, and that's called Special Monthly Compensation, or SMC.
Okay.
And that's actually additional compensation on top of what a veteran already might be receiving. So a lot of folks think that 100% is the most compensation that a veteran can receive or be paid at,
Right.
when in fact you can actually receive additional compensation for SMC, and those monies are awarded for veterans whose conditions are render them far more than just unemployed, but far more severe. Maybe, for example, they might have loss of use of a foot, loss of use of a creative organ, loss of use of a hand, or a combination of those things, blindness. These things render veterans more than just unemployed, but really require assistance with some of the activities of their daily living, or confine them to their homes. So VBA offers those, or pays those veterans at a higher compensation rate. And in fact, along the lines of, as I mentioned, the prescribed form, veterans can actually apply for special monthly compensation. And that standardized form to make that claim is the VA Form 21-2680. Again, that's VA Form 21-2680, and that's how a veteran could file a claim for special monthly compensation. And generally, those two types of claims, and I would encourage you to look at them, are special monthly compensation claims for what we call aid in attendance, where veterans, as a result of their service-connected disabilities, are so disabled or so impaired that they require assistance with the activities of daily living. Veterans would be entitled to that, and that's, again, additional compensation. Another one is statutory housebound, where veterans, or excuse me, not statutory, but housebound, where veterans are basically housebound.
Right,
You would
right.
receive additional compensation. And also another benefit, and we call this an inferred benefit because claims processors are required to look for this, but if a veteran has a single 100% disability and their additional disabilities combined to a certain rate, then they're entitled to what we call statutory housebound, where we would automatically grant housebound, just they would get that additional compensation. And we also do that for other, anytime we're evaluating a disability and it arises to a certain level, we infer and identify their entitlement to special monthly compensation. But I did want to draw the distinction that veterans can themselves apply for special monthly compensation by submitting that on the 21-2680.
So technically, when some of these claims, they can receive 150%?
Well,
It depends upon
it would
the-
never be a percentage. It's 100%.
100%.
100% is the max, but when you start to talk about the special monthly compensation rates, we figure out, based on the rates, what their monthly
Oh,
payment
okay,
would be.
okay.
And when we're talking about percentages, because I think that's a great
Yeah.
point, because a lot of veterans come and say, I'm 110% or I'm 75%.
Right.
But actually, VA's rate tables, our rate tables range from 0% to 100%, and they go in increments of 10.
Well, I tell you what, this is going to end the show for the second show of part 2. So hopefully we'll be back.